I'm Matthew.
I'm John.
And this is Barrows Borderlands, the game I've been working on with a group of my friends for about 2 years now. And it's a passion project. It's based on OD&D and a few of the other extensions of that, such as Holmes, Metamorphosis Alpha, Gamma World, a few games like that. You know, they sort of inspired this project. It is a weird science fantasy, old school style role-playing game set in a dark radioactive wasteland of magic, black powder, and dragons. And today, we're going to go through how to make a character for this game. So, John's got a character sheet here. He's going to be our lucky or unlucky test subject for making this character. Normally, whenever I'm running the Borderlands, we don't concern ourselves with backstory or anything. We just hop right into why did you leave home, roll some dice, and get into the game. I like to tell my players their backstory is levels 1 through 3. And that really helps them sort of not worry too much about, oh man, I got to explain why my character's here. I've got to explain why I'm doing these things. No, the explanation is I want to go get gold, treasure, and fight monsters. And later on, maybe you can get into deeper role play and such like that. But this is all an excuse to play games with your friends. So to start off with character creation, you grab your Men and Mutants book, which comes in the 4-volume set of Barrows and Borderlands.
In this wonderful wood grain box here.
Yes. You grab this and you flip right over to page 24, where we list out everything you need to make a character on one page, and then you just follow along in the booklet. A lot of the booklet is styled like that OD&D sort of layout, but I tried to make the writing style a little bit easier for new players. So it does give a little extra explanation as to what exactly is a character. But first off, you either start with a blank sheet of paper or one of the cardstock character sheets that comes in the box set. Also, you can find those for free on barrowsandborderlands.com. The free download, print them out yourself at home. They also have a digital form fillable version as well. But you grab your sheet and you get your stats for strength through radiation resist. So we'll do that next, but most of these tabletop RPGs use the traditional 6 stats, which is strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, charisma. But Barrows and Borderlands has a 7th stat, which is radiation resist, because this is a radioactive world. So there's multiple times where your character might go somewhere they shouldn't have, or open a box a little too early, and they're filled with radioactive elements, which can mutate them or turn them into strange monsters. But
we refer to that as relevant.
Yes, very relevant. I think your character has been mutated a couple times. I know Jacob's character, he just got an extra set of arms.
Yeah, my character now has 4 arms, but he cannot control them, so they kind of just do their own thing.
Yeah, they're their own thing. But to roll up your 7 stats, got a very traditional way in here, 3d6 down the line. There are alternate rolling options in here, such as 4d6 dropping the lowest, etc. I've got 2d6 plus 6. That's up to the referee. At our game, I usually do 4d6 dropping the lowest, but since we're doing a test, we'll go by the book. So 3d6 down the line. So to start off, we'll roll your 6 stats. So that'll be strength through radiation, but we'll start with strength 3d6 down the line.
So we got a 12.
12, not bad. Average, I would say. I think as long as you don't get a 5.
15 for dexterity.
15 dexterity, so I think I know what you might be, but we'll see.
I'm going to be an acrobat. Oh, that's live. 6 for constitution.
Definitely not a mutant.
Definitely not a mutant. 10 for intelligence. I'd say 10 for intelligence as a spellcaster's kind of pushing it too.
Yeah, I wouldn't go with spellcaster. That's not
Okay.
bad. 12.
That's, yeah, for wisdom. Maybe an alchemist. He's got dexterity because he's so good at reaching at shelves.
Fair. Neither one of those exist in B&B.
7 for charisma.
7 charisma, okay.
He doesn't have many friends. And rad?
Radiation resist is pretty high.
That's not bad.
That's going to be a 15. So your first and second highest stats, dexterity and radiation resist. So you might not get as radiated as some of these other characters. But after you've got these, we'll go straight into picking a race before we pick out your modifiers and write them down. But the races in Barrows and Borderlands are human, everybody's favorite, kobolds, which I go off of the sort of dog kobold peoples. They get some heightened strength and con, a little bit less on their charisma because people don't really like mutants and weird things in this world, at least in my setting. But starborns, which are men or women that have fallen from the stars, landed on the Borderlands. We have halflings and dwarves. Everybody knows what those are. Mycelians, so mushroom folk. We've got mutants. We've got fairies and green skulls. So the mutant race is very interesting because you get to roll up a random mutation for your character. That's pretty much the thing that they get. It can be paired with the Gamma class. Gammas also get to roll for mutations. So if you just wanted an abomination, you could play a mutant, Gamma mutant, and we can see how that goes. But and green skulls are also quite interesting because those guys are basically remnants of a forgotten world. They were there when the stars fell and everything got irradiated, and they've lost their memories and are just sort of wandering the wasteland. Normally they have either translucent skin or no skin at all, but they all are marked by the same green bones. Your favorite character is a green skull, I think. So
yes, my second character, my main right now is a green skull. Yes.
You have to say second character because of that first one getting eaten by a velociraptor.
Yes. To make it someone's pet. Granted, they got the pet, so in the end, the mission was accomplished. But yes, my Mycelian Kristoff had his head ripped off,
as it should be. And fairies are in there. They mainly get to switch between being small little fey-like creatures to growing to the size of folks and people. But with these stats you got here, you got an idea of what you want to be race-wise?
Yeah, so with the charisma being 7 and constitution being 6, I'm definitely leaning towards maybe like either a kobold or a mutant because he's already not going to be charismatic with those limitations. Albert is a mutant, so I was thinking kobold because I've yet to do a kobold, and I'm feeling that dog in me right now.
Kobolds are pretty cool.
They get that dog in me.
They get a +1 to their strength and a +1 to their constitution. So your strength will become a 13, and your constitution gets to be a 7 now. You're making bounds and leaps in your constitution.
And this is why it is always best to use pencil.
Yeah. We've got a lot of players that will start off with their character sheets just on a blank piece of paper and then transfer it over to a character sheet when they're ready. But, so yeah, you have a 7 con. Now your charisma is going to go down by 1. So you'll have
a 6.
A 6 charisma.
I traded my charisma for my constitution.
So on the back of your sheet, I got a little room there to put additional abilities, skills, whatever. But we'll go ahead and write in there, as a kobold, your movement speed is doubled when you're unarmed. It's also that when you're on all fours. So your movement speed is doubled when you're unarmed and on all fours. And you get an unarmed claw attack that does 1 to 3 damage and a bite that does 1 to 6. So that's pretty good for a race. They don't get anything else. But, you know, they're sort of ferocious beast men. All right. So now that you've got your core stats. Why don't you read them off for me?
So I have strength 13, dexterity 15, constitution 7, intelligence 10, wisdom 12, charisma 6, radiation resist 15.
Not bad. Pretty good start to a character. Now,
Balanced for the most part.
unlike newer tabletop games like 5e and stuff like that, your stats don't really change much in this game. I mean, once they're set at the beginning, that's kind of who you are till the end of the game. There are some magic items you can find that might increase your stats, but generally you're stuck with what you got. But you're going to die so fast in the Borderlands and probably have multiple characters that it won't matter too much if you roll some up terrible.
One thing to note is if you do come in contact with something that makes you lose a point from your abilities, you do have ways to be able to take steps to regaining that.
Mm-hmm.
You would need to speak with your DM or referee to be able to get the
some ways of regaining it, like with hit points, but takes a little bit longer. Now that we've got your abilities figured out, and your race picked out, you're gonna be a kobold. Let's go ahead and pick out what class you're gonna be. So, classes are another thing that will change the way you play. So, a class is sort of your character's profession, but it's what they do to play the game. And a couple of the normal ones are in here, but I also have some classes that don't really exist in anything else. But the classes in Barrows and Borderlands we have are the Fighting Man. They're going to be your martial classes. They increase their, they get better at fighting every time they level up. Their THAC0 goes down, which we'll get to that later, but they just get better. You've got magic users. Magic users are your arcane everythings. All right, they're your sorcerers, your warlocks, your wizards. They're everything in one. They're anybody that does just magic as a profession. Next up, we have your clerics. These are not just your priestly healer types, but they can also be your Solomon Kane, I hunt the undead types. You know, they could even be your paladins. Clerics, they're the holy warriors of this world. Next up, we have the half-caster. So they're not as good at fighting as a fighting man. They're not as good at casting spells as a magic user, but they are sort of the jack of both trades. So they get a little bit of magic, a little bit of fighting, and take a little bit longer to level up, but pretty good class. The thieves are, well, it's exactly what they say they are. They're your acrobatic swashbucklers. They're your picklocks in a dungeon. They're Grey Mouser, you know. Then we have your gammas, and these are people that are even more mutated than your regular mutants. So much so that's what they've based their entire profession around, is using their mutations in battles. These are either your horrifying Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle characters or they're the X-Men. You know, like these guys they get powers and abilities from their mutations, which the players roll randomly. So it can be a mixed bag, or you can wind up being quite front-loaded, powerful. And then finally you have your psychics. Your psychics are masters of the mind. They're not really using magic like the magic user, and they're not using ecclesiastical conjurings like a cleric. They are shredding minds like wet paper. They are your scanners. They're your fire starters. They're your Akiras. Think any 1980s psychic movie, you're right there with them. And those are the 7 classes in Barrows and Borderlands, at least for now. But which one do you think your kobold wants to be?
He's feeling fighting man. I think
man.
I think this kobold kind of has something to prove. You know,
he's got something to prove.
He's
with
been
his
looked down his
low
whole
stats,
life.
and
yeah,
he's got a horrible charisma. So, yeah. So fighting man's a good option too for first-time players. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. You grab a weapon, you hit things. I mean, that's what a fighting man does. I know in later editions of like Dungeons and Dragons, for example, or other TTRPGs, you have specifications on what type of fighting man you are. Are you a monk? Are you a paladin? Are you a ranger? All of it just sort of fits into fighting man here. So that's up to referee and player. Y'all figure out what your flavor is. But to start off with fighting man, your prime requisite is strength. So now we'll get into modifiers before we do anything else. So what is your strength? So your prime requisite is a key attribute that represents your core strength, your core value that your character takes on. It affects how quickly a character can learn experience. So your prime requisite is strength. What is your strength score?
13.
Okay, 13. So the 13, you actually do get a 5% XP boost. And that'll go on the back of your character sheet. This little spot for bonus/penalties on your experience. Now, if your prime requisite had been much lower, say a 6 in your prime requisite, you actually would get a decreased amount of XP every time you gain some. And I find the easiest way to do bonus XP, like if you have a 5% or a 10% bonus, like let's say you're just getting 454 XP. If it's plus 10%, you'll multiply that number times 1.1. And that's your answer. If it's plus 5%, it's that number times 1.05. And there you go. So next up, though, are your just strength modifiers. So with a 13, you get a plus 0 to hit. So that's going to be when you roll to hit something, you're not going to add anything to it. And in Barrows and Borderlands, that's rolling with a d20 like normal, adding modifiers, which you don't have any. And then figuring out, based on your THAC0, what armor class you hit. The best way to remember THAC0, for those of you that are not used to it, it's THAC0, your main number, minus your d20 roll, plus your modifiers. So if I had a plus 3 to hit, I would roll a d20. Say I get a 14. 14 plus 3, that makes 17. Let's say my THAC0 is a 20. So 20 minus 17, I hit armor class 3 and above. That's the easiest way to figure it out if you don't want to use a combat matrix, which is also on the character sheet down here at the bottom. But that right there allows you to put your THAC0 in, and then it just counts down the other direction. So if your THAC0 is a 20, then you know that to get armor class 1, you have to roll a 19, and so on and so on. The lower your armor class is, the better in this game. If you don't want to play with descending armor class, which is what that's called, there's a calculation in the book of how to swap that over real quick. You and your group can play however you want to play. So if you want to use ascending armor class like in 5e, you can. The rules are in there. But for you, starting off, you do not get a plus anything to hit. You get a plus 0 to hit. But you do get a plus 1 to your damage from having a strength of 13. So that means after you've determined if you hit someone and you're rolling damage, say you've got a short sword, you'd roll a d6. I got a 4, and he gets to add a 1, which would make it a 5. So next up are your dexterity modifiers. So dexterity can affect your range to hit, your range damage. It can affect your saving throws against breath, and it can affect your defense modifier, which is your armor class. So what is your dexterity score?
15.
15, that's not bad.
Not bad at all.
So you get a plus 1 to hit and a plus 1 to damage. You do not get any bonuses to your breath saving throw, but you do get a plus 1 to your defense modifier. So whatever your armor class is, that'll be a plus 1. Granted, since we're using descending armor class, a plus 1 actually kind of means a minus 1. So if you had a 4 armor class, you would actually have a 3 armor class, because lower is better. So up next, we have your constitution modifiers. These are going to be pretty bad for you because you have a 7. With a 7 constitution, you're going to have a minus 1 to hit point adjustment. So every time you roll for health, when you level up, it'll be at a -1 to that die roll. And you also get a -1 to radiation-specific death saving throws. So if you need to make a radiation saving throw, like we'll explain later with the radiation resistance, you get a -1 to that. Next up is your intelligence. Now, with an intelligence of 10, you don't gain anything, but for every point over 10 that you have in intelligence, you get to add a language that your character knows. It also makes learning spells a little easier if you're a magic user. Wisdom makes spells easier if you are a cleric. So your wisdom is a 12. So with a 12 wisdom, you also gain nothing from that. But you could also get a bonus to your sorcery saving throw had it been high enough. And then next, your charisma. What is your charisma?
6.
Okay, with a 6 charisma, you have a -1 reaction. So if you're trying to talk to monsters or see if something's going to attack you or maybe make a deal with you, or even the loyalty of your henchmen and hirelings, when those are rolled, those will be at a -1. And you can have a total of 3 retainers, which are sort of guys that'll follow you around, whether that's leveled henchmen or torchbearers, stuff like that. And then your radiation resistance, there are no modifiers for radiation resistance. It just is a flat number, which we'll get to what that does later. But now we got to get the rest of the stuff from your class. So you picked Fighting Man. Fighting Man has a starting hit dice of a D8. So 1d8 up there at the top of your character sheet. They also have a minimum hit points of 8 at level 1. Unfortunately, John, you have a -1 constitution, so you're not going to be able to go above 8, but you have a minimum of 8, so you can just write 8 as your starting health. Every time you level up, you'll roll an 8-sided die for yours. Add or subtract your modifiers, and that will add on to your old health. I recommend keeping track of what your health was every time you leveled up, because there are some monsters in here that make you lose levels, and you're going to need to know on the fly what your health was last level. For example, the vampire will make you lose 2 levels, and all it needs to do is land a hit on you. So, next up, we have your Thaco. As a level 1 fighting man, your Thaco is going to be a 19. So Thaco stands for 2-hit armor class 0, by the way. So that's the number he needs to roll to hit an armor class of 0. In addition, as a level 1 fighting man, your base saving throw is a 16. So now I'll get into saving throws. So in Barrows and Borderlands, it's a little bit different than original D&D and a little bit different than BX and stuff like that. There is one number that you have to roll to beat for your saving throw, and that changes based on what your level is. But you have certain bonuses to that D20, that 20-sided die roll, based on what your character has in different saving throw attributes. So there is death, paralysis, device, breath, so like fire breath from a dragon, explosive devices and whatnot, and then sorcery. When you roll those saves, you'll roll a 20-sided die, add your modifier if you have one, and you're trying to roll equal to or above your base saving throw. So your base saving throw is a 16, but as a fighting man, you get a +2 to your death saving throws and your paralysis saving throws. All right, so having a 16 base save, let's go ahead and see what your character would get, say if he was rolling a death saving throw. So you get to add a +2 to this. 19 + 2, that's 21. You beat your save, and he is not dead today. In addition, your XP to level up, to get to level 2, this will be on the back of your sheet, underneath that bonus penalty spot we marked earlier. But that is the XP you need to reach next level. So for you, that'll be 2001. And there will be information in the Underworld and Borderlands adventures for referees on how to give out XP to your players and in which situations to give it out and how much and etc. All right. Next up, as a fighting man, you have weapon mastery. And this is sort of the mainstay of a fighting man. So you get to pick one weapon, single weapon type. So that could be long swords, that could be flintlock rifles, that could be bow and arrow, whatever you want it to be. That one type, you get a +1 to hit with it, a +1 to damage with it, and your attacking rate, so how many times you can attack per turn, goes up. So, for example, if you picked a longsword as your weapon mastery, you'd get a +1 to hit and a +1 damage, and your attack rate would go from once every round to 3 times every 2 rounds. Meaning, round 1, you could attack once. Round 2, you attack twice. That can change a battle quite a bit. Once you reach 7th level, your attack rate will increase again. So, if you had a longsword and you became 7th level, now you can attack twice every round. So, you can really do a lot with it. So, what do you want your weapon mastery to be?
I'm thinking archery.
Archery, okay. So, archery, your bows will get a +1 to hit and a +1 damage. So, that'd be ranged attacks. And your attack rate with a bow, which is normally a 3-2, now becomes a 2-1. So you can attack twice every round. Next up, we need to know if your character is on the side of law, neutrality, or chaos. So there's been a lot of talks over the years about what alignment actually means. Does it mean good and evil? Should there be a lawful good, or should it just be law and chaos? What is neutrality, etc.? That's up to your referee and whatever setting y'all have.
Right.
I know, like, for example, Empire of the Petal Throne, they use good and evil. But they have their own standard of what morality is. It's not always like, oh, I saved the princess, therefore I'm good. I think it's a alignment based on right action. But then they also have the gods of stability and the gods of instability. So you kind of get that law and chaos and the good and evil. But that's up to your setting. The way I run it at my table is those on the side of law are on the side of humanity and civilization. Those who are neutral are on the side of survival and self-interest. And that could be considered like, oh, you're kind of a crappy person, or I care just about my peoples, just about my tribe in the wilderness, whatever. And then the people on the side of chaos are those on the side of barbarism and destruction. Anything that does not create a stable living condition, that is the side of chaos. So that doesn't mean, oh, we're the bad guy group, we want to burn your village and stuff and have a fascist regime or whatever. That's not the side of chaos necessarily. The side of chaos would be, we want to blow up the world. We just want to end it all. That's how I do it at my table. You should figure out with your referee how you want to do it at yours. How does this kobold fighting man feel? What side is he on?
I'm thinking he's neutral.
Neutral? Cares about himself.
Himself, but also existentially like other kobolds around him or like other outcasts, kind of like that.
Okay.
That mentality of it.
He's a survivalist. He's trying to go off and make his own way and the way for his people. So that'll be right here at the top of your sheet under alignment. All right. Next up, we have your social class and your birth sign. So these are kind of flavored things. A referee can choose not to use them in their game. I have them in my game because I think they're kind of fun. They add a little element to character creation. But your birth sign in Barrows and Borderlands, this kind of determines what stars were in the sky when you were born. Astrological type things. Kind of was inspired by my love of games like Oblivion and stuff like that, where your character would have a birth sign that would change some things. So in my game, my birth signs, they give a +1 to one thing. So that could be if you got the sign of the castle, which is for protection and stability, you gain a +1 to your armor class. But you just need to roll a 20-sided die for me, and we'll see what you get. 13. So that is the sign of the Magi. Unfortunately for you, maybe you were born to be a spellcaster, but you've rejected that. The path of the birth sign of the Magi gives you a bonus spell that you learn every level up. This could be interesting to see where it plays out. Granted, for you, it might wind up being kind of useless, but we'll see. You'll have to see how he plays. And then next up is your social class and your origins. This is based on some older games that do a similar thing, but this will kind of determine where your character stands in the world. Are they peasantry or commoners? Are they middlings, middle class? Are they of the gentry and the nobles? So, and this will also give your character a couple skills. These aren't necessarily things that you will roll for, though your referee might want you to roll for them. But these are kind of things that my character's pretty good at it. For example, being a dairymaid or being a beggar. Though being good at begging would be an interesting way to put it. There's also stuff in here like assassin spy tracker. Maybe your character was that before he decided to go adventuring. But to get this number, we'll roll a D100. 60, 70. So 70. Your character gets to pick one skill from each set. So you are of noble birth in some way, shape, or form. All right, so what skills did you pick out?
Footman, butcher, and duelist.
Okay, so you were a somewhat of a soldier, and a butcher. Maybe in your local town, maybe around the other kobolds, you were the one cutting up the meat. Something drove you to war, so we'll keep that in mind. The only thing for your character that's left is to pick out your gear, and we will roll your psychic potential. We're not going to do gear right now, but the basic gear that you start with is you gain the clothes on your back, 3 to 18 silver pieces, 1 week of iron rations, and a weapon of your choice. And that's it. Other referees might do that different. I know some tables that if they want to get right into the game, they'll do 3d6 times 100 starting silver, which Barrows and Borderlands uses silver as the standard currency, not gold. But we'll skip over the equipment for now. You would basically flip through the book, pick it out, talk with the referee. Maybe he doesn't want certain items in his game. The next thing is we're going to roll your psychic potential. So I've changed a little bit of the way that psionics works. Reading through different blog posts, different articles, and trying to craft a system that works good in my game. So this is based on a few things I've seen all over the place, but it's not exactly like the original psionics from original D&D. To find out how to roll your psychic potential, we'll move over to Psychics and Sorcerers, Book 2. So when you're making a new character and you're going to determine what your psychic potential is, you have to set a baseline. So normally you roll a D100, and if you roll above 100, you are psychic. Now, obviously you can't just roll above 100 on a D100. So you're going to check your intelligence, your wisdom, and your charisma. And those will modify that die roll. So for every point above 15 of intelligence that you have, we're going to add 4 points to our D100 roll.
Don't have that.
You don't have any points above 15 in intelligence. For every point above 15 in wisdom, you don't have that either.
15 for all of them?
Yes. So
you don't got that.
So for every point above 15 in charisma, we will add 2 points. So how many points above 15 in charisma do you have? Nothing. Okay. So that made it real easy. You are not psychic. You just simply cannot roll it. Let's say that you did have an 18 intelligence, 16 wisdom, and a 17 charisma, which you do not. But we'll say you did. And so we would add points based on the book for every point above 15 in each of those. So with an 18 intelligence, that'll be 12 points because you have 3 points above 15.
Right.
So, and it's 4 points per point above 15. So that'd be 12. For your wisdom, we will add 3 points for every point above 15 in wisdom. So we'll add another 3. That'll be 15 since you have a 16 wisdom. And then charisma, we'll add 2 points for every point above. So that'll be an additional 4 added on. So that'll put us up to 19. So you're going to roll a D100. You're going to add 19 to it. And if it's above 100, you're psychic.
46.
You are not psychic.
At all.
But if you were psychic, once again, just for the sake of showing it off a little, you could then you could gain some wild psionic powers. So you would roll a random power in the book, and you would gain that power, and you would also be able to do psychic combat, which is kind of like the rock, paper, scissors of Barrows and Borderlands mental powers.
Every time it happens on the table, I like to think of that scene from Dinner from Schmucks.
Oh, yeah. The Steve Carell's just sitting there. Oh, why is he doing it to me? So the way my psionic system works is it's a D6 based system. There are a bunch of articles. A few people have talked about changing it to a D6, and I felt like it worked good for my game, so we kind of went with it. I didn't like all the powers that a few people had suggested on blogs, so I added a few of my own. And I also missed the whole psychic combat thing, because I feel like a lot of people just ignore it, like they take it out. But I like the idea of, like in Scanners, 2 psychic people going head to head, or Dinner for Schmucks, and they're just using their mental powers against each other. But I felt like that was too complicated too, especially for a newer game. So in this game, you pick an attack, they pick a defense, they pick an attack, and they pick a defense, and then you reveal it and see what happens based on a little chart. You don't have to worry about your character finding or leveling up enough to get certain attacks. It's just everybody has all the attacks and all the defenses. So you're just picking what does and what doesn't work. And then as far as your powers go, you'll roll D6s trying to activate however much investment you have into a psychic ability. So if you had, say, 3 points of investment into pyrokinesis, you could roll a D6, and if you roll a 3 or lower, that ability will go off. And there's different tiers of abilities based on how many points you have. You can go all the way from, I'm just somebody that can like spark flames on a piece of paper, to, no, I can cause my enemies to spontaneously combust by thinking hard enough. I've also got living weaponry, so you could go as far as your body starts morphing into different weapons, or you start going Akira. If you have 6 points of investment, your body starts over morphing, and you've got to have your friends stop you from turning into an abomination and killing everybody. Really fun stuff. Wacky, zany, gonzo style play is some of my favorite. Now, spellcasting. I know you did not pick a spellcaster for your kobold fighting man, but spellcasting in Barrows and Borderlands is very straightforward. You can gain levels, or you can gain spells by leveling up to the referee's discretion. Usually it's 1 spell per level up, and they can get a spell of anything lower than their level, pretty much. Now, the way I like to do it in my game is I like for my players to find spells out in the world. So they don't get any spells when they level up. They have to go find a master, train under them, and the master will give them spells. Or they find an old spell scroll and they have to transcribe it to their spell book. But you don't have to worry about spell levels in Barrows and Borderlands. Every spell does have a level, but every caster has a chance to cast that spell. Every time you try to cast a spell that you know, you'll roll 2 6-sided dice, and you're trying to meet or beat a number that's on the roll to cast chart on page 11 of Psychics and Sorcerers. That chart right there will tell you, okay, if, let's say, for example, you are a 3rd level magic user, and you're trying to cast a 3rd level spell. You have to roll a 9 or higher for it to happen immediately. If you roll an 8, it'll still happen, but it'll get delayed for a round. But if you rolled too low, and let's say you got a 3 or a 2, Snake Eyes, well, in that case, you've now just critically miscast. in Barrows and Borderlands, I like the idea of wild magic. So whenever you critically miscast in here, I have my players roll on the critical miscast table, which I recommend that every referee should make up their own for their world, but I do give you an example one in here to use. It's the one I use at my table. There are things in here from being as simple as, oh, the caster can't cast spells for a little bit of time, or the caster's insides now become outsides, or the caster opens a portal to Atlantis underwater. Stuff like that. I like really wacky, zany things to happen when my players miscast their spells. Yes, it does scare some people from playing magic users, but I don't care. So I like the game to be deadly and dangerous. I think the players agree. It's kind of fun.
Keep you on your toes.
Yes. But other than this, your character is pretty much done. You need to pick a name. You need to buy equipment, and then you need to play them. So, that's how you make a character in Barrows and Borderlands.
It's just that easy.
Yep. It takes less and less time depending on, well, how much in-depth you want to get. If you want to sit there and write out a backstory for your character, you go right ahead. I know a lot of referees that don't read those. So, talk to your referee about what kind of game he wants to run. But if he's running Barrows and Borderlands and he's up for it, y'all can do whatever you want. Maybe he doesn't want to use social class or birth signs. Fine, get rid of them. Maybe y'all's group doesn't like roll to cast and y'all want to use something like Vancian Magic, like in traditional D&D. Fine, go right ahead. All of the system is modular. So use what you want and don't use what you don't want.
It's just about having fun.
Yeah, it really is. That's how this whole game started. Our group, we were making a game for us to play at our table. We didn't like any of the other ones. We couldn't figure out the rules we wanted to use. So we decided, hey, let's make our own. And they convinced me to publish it. I will be running some more of these games at Arnicon come October and ArcaneCon come November. I'll be bringing some box sets with me as well. These are available right now at barrowsandborderlands.com. All the box sets currently are made by hand. We will be getting somebody to manufacture the boxes at some point. But what that means is if you want your box made by hand, you got to order it now. Because as soon as those new boxes come in from the manufacturer, I'm going to put my hands to rest and start doing it that way. I'm very thankful with how many people have been ordering the game. It's to the point where I get no sleep. Every box set comes with the 4 booklets, character sheets, and the box. They also come with a set of dice, standard 7 set of dice, and they come with all of the digital versions of all of this. So, including a digital hex map that is the map that we play on, based on the ones recommended in OD&D. But that hex map can be used for VTTs, or you can print it out, lay it on your table, whatever you want to do. But that is how you make a character in Barrows and Borderlands. So we'll see y'all next time. I think we're going to make a few of these videos if we can.
Yeah.
It'd be cool. Anyway, this has been Matthew and
John,
and this is Barrows and Borderlands.